going to come out with.
All right, so requesting you to stay on with us. We're tracking some further updates, this time from the United Kingdom. We're learning that thousands of people gathered in central London in a show of support for Palestinians. Demonstrators marched from Hyde Park Corner to Whitehall, ending in a rally outside Downing Street. One of the attendees, Nadia Harak, has stated that the fight isn't over. Innocent Palestinians are struggling. The protest highlights, of course, international concern over the situation in the Middle East. On that note, let's listen into what the protesters had to say.
Here because the fight isn't over. Innocent Palestinians are still really struggling and going through hell at the minute, and this is the least we can do, coming out and showing up to show that, you know, we're here for them, we support them, and the Zionist regime needs to come down. And the only way it will come down is by people coming together, standing together, and telling the world that, you know, what they're doing is wrong. It's a crime. They're criminals, and they need to be held accountable.
I'm here because we're living in the belly of the beast. We're living under a Labour government that is arming and funding the settler colonial state of Israel, who are slaughtering Palestinians, taking their lands, their homes, their hospitals, taking everything from them. And we stand in solidarity with the fight back, with the resistance. We stand in solidarity with the people of Gaza, who are facing the most appalling conditions of life. And Britain is in huge part responsible.
You know, this is my kind of way of feeling less isolated. You see all these bad stuff in the news, we're funding a genocide, and you just think, how's everyone okay with this? How are we letting this happen? And I think going to things like this, it kind of shows there's a community of people that agree with you.
Israel has caused an open-air prison in Gaza, and now they're just destroying every building, and they're trying to erase the Palestinians from their own land. And I feel very strongly that it's a wrong, it's immoral, it's just completely wrong.
So with us on the broadcast is Mr. Sasha Machta. Interesting statements coming in. We have seen these protests taking place over the last 2 years since the war broke out. On one hand, there are people, there are all shades of opinions that people in these protests hold. Some of them have rather extreme opinions stating that Israel is committing a genocide. Some are more moderate in their opinions, stating that the path towards a two-state solution is the ideal solution. What do you make of these protests that have taken place in the UK?
The most telling statement that we've heard in the past video, of course, was the Zionist regime. This is exactly depicting what these protests are. They are protests that do not recognize and are against the simple existence of the State of Israel. These protests worldwide have begun on October 7th. Protests against the State of Israel and supporting the Palestinian cause began immediately after the largest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. It had nothing to do with Israel's response. It began before, and of course it's part of this scheme by Hamas and their backers to actually put in an anti-Israel narrative and this extreme pro-Palestinian narrative into Western media, into universities, and into the hearts and minds of so many people. That's why on October 7th, when the war broke out, when Hamas launched their brutal attack, there were already people that were protesting on behalf of Palestine. This has nothing to do with the rights of the Palestinians. This has nothing to do with a better future. There's nothing to do with two states even, because a Jew or an Israeli, if they were to walk at one of these protests, I'm not sure what their fate would be. I think that these are radicalized groups. Of course, some people might have good intentions, but when Hamas is cheering on and when the Iranian Islamic Republic is cheering on these protests, we know that there is something wrong with them. When these protests are calling for the death of Jews, for the death of Israel, and not even recognize Israel, there is something deeply wrong as well. This is a trend that's going on all throughout the world, especially in Europe. It comes from this meeting of the radical Islam that has been unfiltered in Europe, meeting the extreme left and being fueled by mass disinformation and by a media campaign warfare against Israel and Jews worldwide. We saw what this led to already in Manchester with the shooting at a synagogue on the holiest Jewish day of the year. And it's a very, very scary time to be Jewish in these European capitals where many places are no-go zones for them anymore. And my hope is that we will have a future between Israel and Palestinians, a future of peace and coexistence, not because of these protesters, but in spite of these protesters.
Absolutely, sir. Requesting you to stay on with us as we're tracking some further updates. This time from within Israel itself, we're